Hello and welcome to another episode of our Black Gay Diaspora podcast. Today I am joined by Philadelphia based American author, national speaker, and co host of the BoyFriends podcast, Jarrod D. King. The podcast tagline is Find Your Circle and Your Man. I love that. And for each episode, Jarrod and his co hosts share their insights and experiences in relation to friendships and dating. Jarrod is a graduate of Temple University in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and with a focus on creating LGBT characters of color, he's the author of the 2016 sci-fi fantasy novel titled, what is that? Pangaea,
So,
thank you, Unsettled
Pangaea.
Land, and the
Uh-huh.
2020 novel, the Auctorati. I should have done a test run. I look forward to conversing with Jarrod and learning more about his life as a Black gay professional in the city of brotherly love. Hey, Jarrod, and welcome. How are you?
I am well. Thank you so much for having me, Eric. I'm excited to talk with you today. Looking forward to this conversation.
Oh, same here. Same here. Yeah, it's great to talk to a fellow person in this world of podcasting. Yeah.
hmm
As I was waiting for us to start recording, I was just thinking, I guess just to ask you, how do you prepare? Because for me, this feels like a stage performance every time. It's like, which is a good sign. It's like if I have butterflies in my stomach, then I know that I'm really excited for the interview.
yeah. No, it definitely feels that way. When I'm preparing for my own stuff, it's like I have to make sure I look good. I have to make sure, and I do like a more like an in-person video podcast now. So I have to have my camera set up and everything. It's a lot. And coming back off of a hiatus for a few months, the butterflies are pretty big because with social media, if you're not consistent like every day, you kind of, I wouldn't want to say fall off, but basically, like, if you're not seen, people don't remember you that much. And so I was like, okay, can I get the momentum back?
Well, you've been around for a while, and I've seen a few of your episodes and also listened to them. And I think people are looking forward to the content that you put out there, especially because you talk about things that we all think about and relate to as far as friendships and dating. So, yeah, but I get it. I get it. So, you're based in Philadelphia.
I am. I was born and raised here in Philly. It's a great city. There's always something to do out here. I mean, I guess like with my work with my podcast and everything and just trying to find my circle, I have kind of gained a better appreciation for being here because I know at one point it was very much like, I don't know if Philly's the place for me, and it's been good. Eventually I would like to move somewhere warm, but I'll take it for now.
Okay. Have you lived in any other places as an adult?
I've moved maybe, to a suburb of Philly for a couple years, but same general area, so not really.
Okay. Okay. Only thing I know about Philadelphia are two former coworkers. I lived in LA for a long time, and I know one, he moved there a few years ago. He met a girl there. Then recently found out another coworker, former coworker who's gay. He actually just moved there not too long ago. That I found out
Oh.
also through a relationship. And then I also know because I have family in Maryland. And when my dad was alive, I used to rent a car and drive up from Maryland to New York to see more family. And I was always told, whatever you do, don't turn left because you'll end up in Philly.
I mean, you look, it's not the wrong turn scenario. It's not quite that bad. But yeah, it's interesting to know that, there are so many different connections that a lot of people have that kind of like run through Philly. And even with your connections as well.
Yeah, I definitely look forward to visiting it. I love to travel. And when I was back in the US last year for 7 months, I think almost 7 months, I got a chance to see more of the US just based on, what friends had moved to or moved back to. So yeah, definitely Philadelphia is on the list.
Good. Well, look, when you come out here, let me know. We'll have to grab a drink or something.
Okay, okay. I also wanted to say I really like your hair.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I was skeptical when I first did it like this, but after all the compliments and stuff, I'm like, all right, I think I'm going to stick with this for a little bit.
Yeah, and for me, because I've been back and forth and growing my hair out for the last few years, and now I'm committed to growing it out. I know with the look that I want.
Mhm.
So it's really great to see, more of us Black men who are discovering what our hair looks like because, we hear
Mhm.
that from Black women, of course, but, I didn't really know my hair really until I started growing it out a few years ago. And just, seeing curls like yours or even my own.
Now let me ask, can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
It's like, as I know you're, where are you in in
Sweden. I
Switzerland?
just got back here
Sweden.
last week. I was in the UK for almost 6 months, and I just got back here last Wednesday.
Okay, okay. Now, is it difficult to like maintain your hair, or like to find people who to kind of like help you with your hair care in Sweden as a black man, or is it like still pretty diverse?
It's not as diverse, of course, in the States, but yeah, actually, yesterday, a friend of mine, Teresa, her birthday was this weekend, so I spent the weekend with her and her husband and their little one, and she's Black, and she just gave me some product. So no, it's not difficult here. What I found here in Europe is that wherever I've gone, except for one country, there's Black people, and if there's Black
Hmm.
people, I know there's hair care and a barbershop somewhere. And if there's
Yeah.
not, I don't have a problem grabbing them and saying, please help me.
Here
As
you
you know,
okay.
that's important.
Hmm.
So, yeah, yeah. I was on your website, jaredking.com, and I saw that you used to watch Scooby Doo. And I wanted to ask you about that. No judgment, of course. But like, why was that cartoon really important to you? And then also, did you relate to a particular character?
I didn't really relate to any particular character. I looked up to my older brother when I was really young, and he liked to watch Scooby Doo, so I just kind of fell into it. And then watching it, because the formula is very repetitive after each episode, it kind of gave me a framework of how a story should be told, or at least a one version of a story could be told. And I always had an interest in writing from very young, and so that was one of the things that helped me helped me craft a story early on. I think like one of the first full stories that I wrote was very heavily influenced by Scooby Doo, because it was just like, okay, let me just follow that formula and put my own characters and put my own stuff in here. And yeah, from there, I just, continued writing and being creative.
You mentioned writing, and then in the bio, I mentioned that you went to Temple University. So, what's your educational and professional background?
Educational background is English, so a lot of reading and writing there. I did not want to be a teacher, which is what I soon learned was what everybody that gets an English degree does. So I had to be a little bit more creative. So professionally, I kind of stepped into SEO, search engine optimization, and like copywriting. And that was really fueled by this fashion blog that I had done back in, I want to say like 2011 through like 2013, something like that. And that helped me like learn like how to build a website and how to do all of the back end stuff so that it gets searchable on Google. That led me into, a professional position at one place, and then now I am at a different company where I do copy editing. Just steadily trying to find my own path with my educational background. Has been a little bit of an adventure, but it's been good.
I know that Temple University has a really good reputation. How was it there for you going to that university?
Temple itself was good. It was, I will say, curriculum wise, it is a little bit difficult. When I was there, they were calling it like the 5 year school. Like anybody who goes to Temple graduates not in 4 years, but in 5 years, because there's always something that comes up. But I did not really engage in the social aspect of college life, and I think that that was due to just me kind of like keeping my head down and just not trying to ruffle any feathers. Like that had just been my mode since middle school. Just some issues with friends and like my father, and trying to figure out my sexuality. And I was just like, I can't do people getting on me for being different. And so from high school through college, I was just like, let me just do let me just do the academic thing. And, I kind of wish that I had broken out of my shell a little bit earlier because I feel like, my issues with finding friends and stuff would not have been as challenging after college. But I don't know. I mean, I guess that was kind of my path, and that kind of like led me to where I am now, especially with this podcast, kind of talking about how to find other people that you're connected with, whether that is romantic or platonic.
No, I can definitely relate, Yeah, it's such a familiar story, and I can kind of feel the emotion when you were sharing that just based on my own experiences. Were you out at that time, or were you aware of that part of yourself as far as being gay?
Yeah, I was out. I've been out since I was 17, so I think I came out like maybe the last week that I had of high school. So I was out all through college. I even joined like the Gay Straight Alliance at Temple. It was just one of those things where it's like I don't know exactly what to do with it, and I was trying to figure that out.
We talk about the coming out, but it's much more nuance than that. Even though that's something that we relate to, there's still our own backgrounds as far as our family, who we are, what our interests are. And so I know for me, when I did come out, it was like, oh, I'm out. Now what?
Right. It's like you get past the hurdle of coming out, right? But then it's like, okay, now you have a whole new set of, I don't want to say problems, but a set of challenges. Like coming out is really just the beginning of your journey as an individual who wants to kind of live in their truth.
I discovered you not too long after I started this particular platform. So I've been following you pretty much since the beginning well, almost 2 years ago. But how did you, or what sparked your interest in entering the wonderful world of podcasting?
It was at the beginning of the pandemic, 2020, and I was trying to write a sci-fi novel, and it was just like the writer's block was just so strong on that. And I was like, all right, you know what? Let me put this aside. And then after a while, I was just like, okay, I have nothing else to do. Yeah, I was thinking about like trying to be creative, something that I could do to kind of, boost myself. So I started a podcast called Boys and Brunch. And, we did this over Zoom. It was like me and two other guys. We talked about a lot of pop culture issues. A lot of those big conversations that people would have on Twitter was what we would talk about on the show. I did that for about a year, and that helped me get used to live streaming and hosting. I mean, I had done some other stuff on YouTube previous to this, but this was more consistent. And this was a very different kind of energy because it was live and we had to answer questions from the audience and all that stuff. But I soon learned in that I wanted to focus more on, I guess, just making these connections. I knew that I was not the only one out there who kind of felt like it was difficult to make friends in our community and to even find love. And I wanted to provide a space where we could kind of talk about that and work through some of that stuff. And so, and help people get from a place of isolation to a place of validation. Like, I wanted people to feel empowered to be able to maybe approach somebody that previously would have been a little bit intimidating, and just know that you have the confidence to do that and to handle whatever happens after talking to this person. Maybe you could be friends, maybe you could be something else, or maybe it won't be anything, but you'll still survive and you'll grow stronger from the experience. And I really practiced, what I've preached. And I think there's a definite way to increase your satisfaction with your social life. And so that's kind of what I discussed there.
What I felt is you're humanizing those people that we find attractive, demystifying them, which is not taking away from what maybe the qualities that you find interesting in them. But yeah, I can say for myself, especially in the beginning, it was like, oh my God, I can't talk to him. He's out of my league. And then having to cycle through, well, what does that mean?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I find that there are a lot of personal blockages that we kind of have to tear down within ourselves. That's not to say that there aren't people out there who are very snobby and are very just like all into the surface material, like how the look of everything, and won't like reject you based off of some very stupid stuff. But I feel like that's a lot fewer and far between than we expect. We had kind of talked about this in my last episode that I just aired. It was a topic about breaking into a friend group, and one of the co-hosts was talking about how you always see those group of guys who they all look alike, they all just kind of want to be with a certain look of people, and they won't really let anybody else into their little group. And my response to that was, yes, that does happen, but I think if you and your friends, or if me and my friends were to be out and about, somebody else could absolutely have that opinion of us, and that would not be true at all. So it's really about kind of finding your own self-confidence, and really just putting aside some of the social failures that you've had, and just kind of like pushing ahead and just being like, hey, what's going on, y'all? And like I'd even done it. The people you would expect to just be like completely like, oh, why are you even talking to me? But you humanize them, you make them feel comfortable in your presence. You don't put a necessity on their interaction. There's no expectation, is basically what I'm trying to say. You don't put an expectation out there. And you just kind of roll with what they give you. And if they don't give you anything, then you just back off and say, okay, well, it was good to meet you and I'll see you later. It is that simple. But on the other hand, I understand why it's very hard to do that. So that's why I try to talk about it.
No, thank you for that episode because I did watch it, and I first was siding with it was Noel, and I was like, well, screw them. But it feels like you're in the middle of that. But I really like what Renee said. I see myself as shy or, more subdued. But I have heard throughout my life that sometimes people are like, oh, well, I thought you were stuck up. And it's like, oh my God, no, I'm the furthest from that. It's more, I'm probably like paranoid more than anything. But when she brought that up, or she brought up, being from California, kind of what you just said, it's like sometimes we can present that way too. We're not aware of it. And so I like that the three of you gave three unique perspectives, especially me. I was going in with it with a very set opinion. But as you guys started talking, I was like, oh, okay, this is much more than I initially realized.
Yeah, I think the thing to remember is that, as gay men, there is a common experience that we have. Like everybody on some level kind of feels that way about everybody else. And if we're all kind of like, you ever see that scene in like a cowboy movie where everybody's like pointing the guns at each other? And if we're all rolling into the bar and everybody's holding their guns at each other, then it's just like, okay, calm down. Like we all have gone through the same thing where we feel like we have to have our guard up a little bit. And 9 times out of 10, that person's gonna be perfectly fine, at least having some sort of small interaction, as long as you don't put like a whole and needing something out of this person.
And I like your take on it. I've heard this for myself is that, the way you are approaching men, it's like you're not personalizing it. It's like, I don't know you, you don't know me. And if you say fine, thank you, or no, thank you, it's not a personal attack on you because they don't know you and you don't know them. So, Renee is your only female co host. And if I understand, she's straight identified.
She is.
How is it having a woman's perspective on your panel, and how has it helped you and how you look at life and dating?
I think her perspective is needed because it just enhances the flavor of the conversation, I think. And it shows that there are a lot of commonalities that people who are attracted to men have, you know, regardless of, gender or sexual orientation. I appreciate her input. I appreciate her humor. I think that it just adds a different layer to the conversation than having all gay men at the table. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I've learned for I have two sisters, but with my female friends, especially of course, around dating, we on the surface are attracted to the same gender, or us the same gender, and then men are straight counterparts. But it is different because men, even though we're gay, we're still men, and we are not only there's a lot of things that are uniquely male for us, but it's how we were brought up as boys and men too that I think for myself, I'm still kind of, working through. And what I've learned with, especially with female friends, I do, like you said, I need to have perspective.
That's why I try to keep it like even like racially diverse on the show because I feel like it's interesting to have different perspectives from different lenses, different slices of life. So yeah, I mean, I think the more different opinions that we can get, the more the better the conversation, the more that listeners can get out of it, the more things that we can hook onto. Maybe somebody won't agree with what I have to say, but maybe someone will agree more with what somebody else has to say. And if as long as the listener can get something positive out of the conversation, I'm good with that.
Yeah, and I think also finding the similarities. I was talking to two black gay friends, male friends. One is in the UK and one is in the US, and a question came up of, is it harder for us to date as black men, black gay men? I mean, having friends and from different backgrounds, we all talk about the same stuff. I think, yeah, there's the race component that's a part of it, but I think when we get down to pure dating, it's like we're all challenged in the same way.
Yeah, that I would agree with. I think our challenges as black men are probably unique. I don't know. I kind of think like across the board, we are kind of dealing with the same stuff, honestly. So I don't know.
When I first came out, I'm from Arizona, but I moved to LA as a young adult, and I came out in LA. And I first was initially going to mainstream white clubs, and I was like, I'm not really finding my center here. And then a friend introduced me to black gay clubs, and then I was like, oh, it's going to be automatically I'm going to find the love of my life. And I was like, no, it's the exact same shit here. That
And see,
visual, like you
that's
said, our guns cocked.
yeah, yeah. And that was one of the things like I had to kind of like back myself up a little bit because there was a moment where I was a little bit upset. I'm like, okay, I'm here. I'm in the black gay clubs. Like I kind of expected like an immediate kind of connection and I didn't necessarily get that. It just taught me that there's a lot that we have in common in dealing with the social aspect of making friends or finding relationships. So
I did catch one of your older episodes when you was boys in brunch. And
yes,
I really connected to this and what you shared in particular, but the name of the episode was Can Black Gay Men Be Friends? And I wanted to ask you, is there something that you found before you did that episode that has proven that that's more of a challenge for us?
I'm not really remembering the conversation completely.
Well, I think you kind of touched on it, and more specifically in that episode that I related to what you shared is that I automatically assume when I found, black gay either clubs or different types of organizations that I would automatically connect. How I present, how I sound. I've been aware most of my life that some people they read into that and they assume. For years, I couldn't say the word because I knew it wasn't me, but they think, "Oh, you're an Oreo." It's like, no, I want to be here with you guys too, and I can't help aspects of my upbringing or where I grew up. This is just a part of who I am, but I'm one of you too. So
I think maybe what I was talking about in that episode was kind of growing up in a different area than some others and coming together and being able to accept each other and accept what we both bring to the table or as I'm sure you know because the title of this podcast is our black gay diaspora. There are so many different slices of blackness within our community. It's really just about accepting each other and what we can all bring to the table. I think part of my struggles was going to different organizational things. You know, they tell you all the time, if you want to make friends, join a club or something, or join a social group that doing something that you love to do. I went to writing groups. I went to dancing groups. I did a bunch of other stuff, and just were not many black people in there. And if they were there, they were maybe 20, 30 years older than I was. Where are the people like me in my age range that I could potentially connect with? One of the things that I've noticed, at least in Philadelphia, is that we just aren't in many social groups in this particular area. You have to know somebody who knows somebody so that you can get invited to like a house party or something. And that's how you would connect with somebody. Otherwise, you're going to the bar or the club. And if you don't have the social skills, which at the time I did not, to just walk up to somebody and say, hey, and just try to like, strike up a conversation. If you don't have all that, it's like really intimidating and really hard to make friends in that kind of a situation. I mean, I think it still is even now. And yeah. So and also just, I'm a suburbanite kid. I'm not from the hood. Well, I mean, the US, and you know how it's mixing with different um I guess subcultures within our community. It can be a little bit difficult because people will, like you said, assume certain things, or they could look at me and think that I'm assuming something of them because I'm a little bit snooty, I'm a little bit bougie.
I mean, we know within the or I should say me, it's like, because I've heard bougie, and I know nine times or a lot of times it's not meant as a compliment. Yeah, just over time being able to stand and say, this is who I am, and if you like it, fine, and if you don't, that's okay too. Yeah, I wanted to backtrack just a bit. I have a background with graphic design, and I wanted to say I really like the look of your website and also your logo with the group of people, and then one of them has a heart. I'm like, oh, that's really nice.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, yeah. Um, as a podcast host, somebody who has a public platform, how do you determine what you're going to share from your own life?
As long as it's not going to blow up my life, because I've had a couple of moments on the show where it's just like, oh, I have to deal with this for the next couple of weeks, and I don't like to do that kind of thing. But I really just I try to be as open as I can, and because I feel like that's what's needed. You can't dance around issues. You kind of have to speak to things. Now, I won't put people on blast. I'm not throwing names out there. I'm not slamming anybody necessarily. I will talk about maybe some weird moments I had dating somebody, or running into a certain person or something like that, but it's never to disparage that person. It's really just to talk about my feelings and how to work through issues and stuff like that in the moment. So yeah, and really, like, a lot of the topics and stuff are created with kind of a message in mind. When trying to make connections, we really have to focus on self-love. We have to focus on our confidence in being able to make the approach. I think the one of the lines that I consistently use is, "Stand back and get what you get, and step up to get what you want." So that's one of those things. It's like, if you're interested in somebody, you need to step up. You can't just wait for them to come to you all the time. Sometimes they'll come to you. Trying to think what else. Just like being in the right place, putting yourself amongst the people that you want to get to know or want to be associated with, focusing on the things that you have that are similar to kind of grow the relationship. And lastly would be, if somebody were to approach you, how do you handle that? Are you going to kind of push them away and reject them immediately, or are you going to be curious and see where this goes and see what happens, even if this is somebody who you initially are like, I am really not interested in romantic, I'm not interested in friendship or anything with this person, they may still have something interesting to give you, and you may be able to help them in some way, or just kind of have a nice moment, and just to know that you have the power to kind of exit the conversation whenever, in a nice way. So I really try to focus a lot of those topics on those like areas, but of course, we have a lot of fun, we have a lot of laughs. We have some topics that don't necessarily speak to those things, but yeah, that's kind of where it all comes from.
With you being, are you sharing your perspectives and your experiences with dating and friendships? Have you found your friends off camera, off mic, or asking you more for advice?
No. Okay, so I won't say not the co-host
Mm.
necessarily, because like we're trying to grow that relationship. I've gotten some new co-hosts now, and so we're trying to reestablish that friendship connection and everything, to the point where we can talk about those things off camera. Um I will have like my close friends who aren't on the show. We will have a lot of those deep conversations. They won't necessarily come to me for like advice. It's not like, "Hey, Jared, I just wanted to get your opinion on it." It's not quite like that. It's like we'll discuss what we're going through. I'll ask what they're going through, and I'll be like, "All right, you need to drop him, right? Like, you need to just cut and run, please abort." Like I will give my advice. I don't think I've gotten guru status where they just come up to me and just like, "Hey, can you give me your wisdom, a wise one, on this situation?" No, it's not quite like that. Not yet anyway. I don't know. And I think if I ever got to that point, I'd be like, I'm like you need to go to somebody else for this. I'm just your friend, so I don't know.
Okay, okay. You mentioned your co-hosts Renee, Noel, and Mike. Did you know them before you started working together?
I did. I knew Renee. We used to work together, and then Noelle actually used to be the chef at my job. So I knew those two previously. Mike, I did not know previously. Mike, I was looking for new co-hosts, and I was looking at his TikToks and stuff, and I thought he had a really cool personality, and so I invited him to be a part of the show as well. And we've hung out a couple times. He has a great personality as well, so I'm excited for our next recording when he can join us.
Okay. Now, you talked about like you have a multi-ethnic and a multi-gender panel. How has the reception been for that? And I'm not asking like for negatives necessarily, but how has the overall reception been to that?
The reception has been positive. I'm trying to, with this next one, I tried to broaden it out a little bit more. So Noel, of course, is Latino, and then we have Mike, who's white. And then myself, of course, and Renee, who's Puerto Rican slash black as well. So yeah, it's been positive. I'm looking forward to seeing what the reaction will be when we get Mike on the show. I feel like it'll be a positive. I feel like people will be receptive to what we all bring to the show.
Maybe earlier when we were talking about not personalizing, how do you work with those people who are maybe not being as constructive with their input?
So, I am practicing being empathetic. There are a lot of people that I watch online, that tell you to just like not be bothered by the comments, or maybe answer all your comments and be empathetic. There's something in them that they felt like they needed to just say something nasty online, and so you still answer with a level of empathy or something like that. It's hard to do. And I was never one for going back and forth with somebody online. So 9 times out of 10, I'll try to answer in the most professional way that I can. If I feel like it's gonna go to a negative place, or if I feel like the comment is too negative or just, like, blatantly racist or homophobic or something like that, I'll just delete the comment. And, I'm happy to get all of the views and to get people talking, but at the same time, there is a limit on how much I can handle, and I just have to be aware of that. And if it gets to a point where it's like, all right, I'm getting upset, then I need to just not pay attention to the comments or just turn the comments off, which I have done as well.
Now you're one of the brains and one of the people in front of the camera. Are you also part of the production?
Yes,
Okay.
I am currently self-producing. I'm the only one producing. I enjoy editing a little bit. Once I get into it, I can kind of enjoy it, but I would much rather be just in front of the camera and and just giving my opinions and fostering the conversation. But if I didn't do all the other stuff, then I wouldn't have a show. So I have to do it. And I'm happy with where we are. I'm looking forward to increasing the quality of the show.
I can relate to the production. I'm doing everything. I did have some background in editing, but doing this particular type of show, it's like, you can never explain to someone how much work goes on behind the scenes to create something that for them may be an hour or so. It's like that took a while to do.
It hurts when somebody says something negative. I don't know if you've gotten negative comments or anything that was slightly off, but when people would say something about like the production of the show, and I'm like, it's just me at this point, and I am not at the moment not making any money off of this. So it's like I can't really put a whole lot into it, working with what I got. But it's like, but not everybody understands that. Not everybody understands all of the hours that you're putting into it. So that's again why you have to work from that empathetic place when dealing with those comments. It's like, okay, this person just is just unaware.
Well, understanding what you're doing and seeing a few of your episodes from a couple years ago, I definitely saw the growth. That was like right away. I was like, oh my God, seeing what you're doing now and then seeing then, it's like lighting, camera angles, all that stuff that if I think about it, when we think of celebrities and we see old footage of them, like, oh my God, look at them. And she didn't even know that this was her angle. And because I'm doing the same thing and I have to tell myself that I have to start it and then I'll grow from there because for me, especially doing stuff on camera, was just something I was absolutely against 2 years ago. Now I can look at myself a bit more objectively and say, oh, okay, just do it. And then don't judge it as much as I can. And then it'll progress after that. But I definitely saw that with where you started and where you're at now. So I would say, yeah, great job.
Oh, awesome. Well, thank you. I'm glad you noticed some growth. And I would just say, like, to anybody else that's like trying to do something like this and trying to do something creative, you really just have to start. You can't worry about making it perfect on the get-go. You'll perfect it as you go. I remember when I did Boys and Brunch, I was just thinking about this yesterday, like when I started that, but I hadn't really done like a podcast production, and we were doing it online, and that first episode was horrible. I mean, and like so much so that it's not even like nobody will ever find it. It was horrible. You have those moments, but then you live and then you learn and then you just make it better.
Of course, we want these to grow, but where would you like to transition to?
I don't know. I think really at the end of the day, I want as many people to enjoy it and to see it as possible. So whether that is something that is well sponsored and something that is like, TV show quality, I'm happy to just continue to have it grow and to currently looking for sponsors to kind of increase the quality of it as well, and getting it out to a bigger audience. I would like to do some live recordings of the podcast, I would like to do some events where we kind of put into practice a lot of the stuff that we talk about on the podcast. So just creating a safe space so that everybody can mingle and talk and have fun and make these new connections. And maybe another book, maybe a course on how to connect with people. It's all a part of the plan. We'll see what comes of it though.
So, in addition to this, like, I mean, it's sounds like you're very busy, but yeah, can you share about your two novels?
Yes. So the first book that I wrote was Pangaea, Unsettled Land, and that was a fantasy novel. This is back in 2016 that I published it. It's about a young, it's like a college student who is supposed to work for the queen after he graduates. And he doesn't want to do that. And then a handsome warrior talks about this ancient mythical sword that's said to have brought magic to the world. And so they team up together and they come across mythical creatures and the evil queen who kind of wants to take over the world. So that's the plot of like the first book. And then the second book is more of like a prequel where, and that's the Auctorati, where it centers around this vigilante group, but basically it just centers around that group and how they formed and how they uh, are dealing with this government, this oppressive governmental figure, and this threat that's kind of destroying the city. So yeah, those are the two, and I've always loved fantasy and sci-fi. Hopefully, at some point, I can get back to that book I was writing in 2020 and get past the writer's block, because I think it's a really interesting idea.
Okay. How long did it take you to write the first book?
I had the idea for a few years, and I had been bit by bit kind of throwing little pieces, throwing ideas around. And then once I actually sat down to write it, it took about 8 months. And that was just consistently getting back to there every day. Just, if I could write 1,500 words, fantastic. If I could only write two the next day, then okay. Keep typing something when you open when you open the computer, so yeah, that's about as long as it took.
Author, podcaster, working full time.
A lot of stuff.
Yeah, yeah. So when you're not doing any of that, how do you unwind?
I think like I would say primarily it's like just finding something on TV to watch or playing a video game. I love video games. I'm part of a tennis group now, so I play tennis. I like going out with my friends. I love to go out to eat. I love to go into a nice restaurant or something like that. If I'm not being like super creative with the podcast, I'm being creative in other ways. Like I'm trying to learn Spanish now.
Always evolving and growing, it sounds like. Wow. I like your energy. I just have to say that.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm just really glad that you agreed to come onto this platform. So it's just really great to connect with a fellow in this arena, and also just to hear how you are challenging yourself to grow not only in your personal life but also in your professional life.
I am so grateful for you inviting me and for having me. I wish you the best with this platform.
Any final thoughts or insights?
Don't shut yourself off from people. There's a danger being isolated for Black gay men and just like gay men in general. It's just been hard. It's been hard to fit in. It's been hard to find our place sometimes. Try to find, that one person that you connect with. And even if it's just a surface connection, find some other people through them and try to create a little bit of a nexus for yourself, a little bit of a circle, that can really enhance your life. And I mean, I'm telling you this from personal experience. Let's have those interactions, let's make those connections, and I promise that you will be able to enhance your life if you keep trying.
Where can we follow you online?
So you can follow me at Jarrod D King on Instagram and TikTok, and you can also follow the BoyFriends podcast. That's at BoyFriends Pod on Instagram. And you can also go to the BoyFriends website. That's boyfriendspod.com. You'll see all the new episodes, and you'll be able to follow the podcast.
Cool. Thank you. And I'll make sure to share that on all social media.
Oh, awesome. Thank you.
Thank you for spending time with us. If you enjoyed this episode, please rate, comment, and subscribe. Share with your friends too. You can also follow us on Instagram at Our Black Gay Diaspora and on Twitter at BLK Gay Diaspora. Until next time.